everybody, today we're gonna make some homemade vanilla donuts. I almost said ice cream, but I mean donuts. We're making homemade vanilla donuts today. We were in the mood, but we didn't want to go to the store. We didn't want to go to Shipley's or Dunkin' or whatever else is around. So we thought, let's just make our own. So we're gonna get started. You see a lot of ingredients here, but don't worry. These are what we're gonna start off with is our milk. We need 1.5 cups of milk and 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, instant yeast. So what you want to do with your milk is put it in a microwave safe cup or bowl and warm it up for about 45 seconds so that it can be warm enough to activate the yeast. If you don't have warm enough milk, you're not going to activate the yeast and you won't have a good rise on your donuts. So let's get started. I've got my 1.5 cups of milk already warmed up and ready, and I've got my yeast measured out, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in here. And I'm going to use a fork, and what I'll do is gently mix this in. You do not want to stir it up real fast or whisk it, because if you do, you're going to kill the yeast. It'll actually die and it won't do anything. So I'm going to go ahead and gently stir this together like that. I like to make sure, the yeast is actually coated. Sometimes it'll stick to your spoon or your fork and make a mess like I just did, but don't worry about that. Just scoop it back up and put it back in the milk. All right. Kind of got a lot on that this time. That's kind of silly. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. But we're not going to worry about it. We're going to put it right back in there. How about that? All right, so now we're done with that. And we're going to set this off to the side and let it rise or fluff up, foam up for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, it should be nice and frothy on the top. And we'll show you that in just a second. Okay guys, I'm back. One thing I've learned is you always want to make sure you have good unexpired yeast. The container here has old yeast. It didn't foam. It just turned ugly and yuck and thick and brown. And this is actually good yeast that has foamed the proper way. That means it's fresh because I had to go to the store 5 minutes away to get another pack. So do not make the mistake of using old expired yeast. Make sure you check your date and make sure it's good. So now we're going to move on. Let's get rid of the old yeast. The bad batch we don't need. And let's get to our good yeast and the rest of the ingredients. So what we're going to do now is take this yeast, this milk and yeast mixture, and we're going to gently stir it like this. And then we're going to add it to our stand mixer bowl. And the reason you want to use a stand mixer is because it's a lot of work to work the dough, and it's easier on your hands, to be quite honest. The machine does it all for you. So here's our stand mixer bowl. We're going to go ahead and pour this in there just like that. And we're going to go ahead and add our eggs. We have 2 large eggs, so you need 2 large eggs for this recipe. We'll dump those in there. Then we have where's my measurements here? We have 1/4 cup of sugar, so we're going to throw that in the bowl. All right. The next would be 2 tablespoons of vanilla, because we're making vanilla donuts, so we need vanilla. All right. And then the last thing we're going to put in here is our melted cooled butter. This is 8 tablespoons of melted cooled butter. So I melted it, let it cool a little bit, and now I'm about to pour this in here. All right, and I kind of scrape it because I want to make sure I don't leave any butter behind. Butter's like awesome. Can't waste it. So we're going to throw that in there. And then we're going to move our bowl and attach it to our mixer. Oh, and this little gem, this is salt. So we need to go ahead and add our salt. This is 1 teaspoon of regular salt. Not kosher, not the coarse salt. You want the regular granulated salt. So let's go ahead and move the mixer so you can see what I'm doing here. All right, well, let's not put the mixer in the way. How about that? I'll just do it this way so you can kind of see a little bit in the bowl. All right, so we're going to snap this in place. And I'm going to attach the dough hook. You want to use the dough hook because this is what you use to make dough, obviously, because it's called a dough hook. So we're going to go ahead and attach that. I'm going to lift the bowl I have a lift kind, so, and then we're just gonna mix this until it's like combined together, you know. We're not gonna whip it up or anything, just mix it. The dough hook won't whip it. If you had to whip it, you'd use a whipping attachment. We're not doing that. So, go ahead and get it started. I set it on a number 2 at first, and then a number 3, and that's about as fast as you want to go at this point. We're not trying to whip it, we're just trying to combine all these ingredients together. All right, I think we're good there. So I'm gonna go ahead and lower it. And I'm gonna move this hook out the way. So there we go. And now we're gonna go ahead and add half of our flour. And our flour, we need 4 1/4 cup of flour plus 2 tablespoons, excuse me, to make the donut dough. So let me get a spoon. And I like to just spoon it in there so I can kind of push it around, you know, put it where I want. I don't want to just dump it because then it kind of splashes everything, the liquid ingredients inside. I just use a spoon. I'm going to put about half of it in there because we just want to get it started, you know, so that the liquid can go in there, mix in well with the, that's a little more than half, but that's okay. It doesn't take an exact measurement here. All right, I'm going to start this up and let it mix a little bit, okay? You start off slow because otherwise when you start fast, it'll go everywhere. You'll just have an explosion of like flour and liquid everywhere. And then I increase the speed. I'm gonna go to a 3 and let it do its thing for a minute. All right, I think that's enough for this minute. What I always do when I'm making anything in a mixer like this, because as you can see, I hope you can see that okay, there's a little bit of flour stuck to the side. You want to take a spatula and scrape the sides. You do this with buttercream, with cake mixes and all that, because what happens is the dry ingredients stick to the side and it doesn't mix into the batter the way it's supposed to, or the dough. So for this case, I want to make sure, like with most things I make, I scrape the bottom and the sides so that everything, oh, that egg needs to break up a little bit, so that it all, you know, combines together, mixes well and all that. And then I'll just kind of scrape the spatula on the hook. Tap it off a little bit. Set this down. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the remainder of the flour so that we can make our dough. Again, I don't like to just dump, so I use a spoon. You use whatever method you want, whether you want to dump it, just be prepared. You might get some all over your counter or yourself. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and tap the rest of this in. Okay, we got all that in there now. We're ready to cook with gas. All right, let me lift this bowl, lock it in place. Again, I'm going to start on a number 1. Let it kind of start incorporating together. And then I'll do a number 2. And that's starting to come together pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and increase to a 3. And now we're going to leave it and do its thing until all of the ingredients are incorporated. I may need to pause and the mixer and scrape the sides because you can still see the dry ingredients are trying to stick to the sides. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And after this, we should only have to do this maybe once, if at all. So we're just going to do this now. All right, so our dough has been mixing, but it's still a little wet. You can see that here. And what happens is you need to add a little bit more flour at a time. So I'm going to add another tablespoon and we'll mix it up some more. Okay, so as you can see, the dough's still a little wet, even though I've added another tablespoon. We're gonna add one more. It just depends on, I guess, the humidity in the air or something. Sometimes you just have to add a little bit more flour at a time, because what we're looking for is the dough to be really thick and hearty and kind of stick to the hook, but not stick. I'll show you whenever it's ready, but this is what we're trying to do, is get that particular texture. Okay, so I think the dough is ready, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let me unhook this. So you can see it's kind of elastic. It sticks, but then it's not too sticky, you know? It'll come right off of the hook by scraping it with the spatula. So now what we're gonna do, since we got this all mixed up, is we're gonna go ahead and take this bowl off the stand. Move this out of the way. And we're gonna take some good old saran wrap, cling wrap, plastic wrap, whatever you wanna call it, and we're gonna cover this bowl. And what we're gonna do now with it is let it rise. This dough will double in size over the next hour. And whenever that's done, we'll roll them out. We'll cut them into donuts, donut holes, and then we'll let them rise again. All right, y'all, we're back. So here's my bowl and the saran wrap. We're gonna go ahead and remove that. Look at that dough, how puffy it is. That's awesome. That's exactly what we were looking for. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna move this out of the way, and we're gonna get some flour, and we're gonna go ahead and sprinkle our surface with flour so we can actually roll the dough out and cut it. But we have to put flour so that the dough doesn't stick to the counter. And by the way, I've cleaned the counter, so you might want to make sure you clean your counter too, okay? And I'm just kind of being generous with the flour that I'm sprinkling to make sure I cover it real well. Can I talk today? Maybe so. Real well. And I'll also put some on top of the dough once I get it out. I've got my bowl and I've got my trusty spatula. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and scrape the dough out of the bowl. That way I don't leave anything behind. If I do, it's very little. But for the most part, the dough is going to come together in one big ball here. Looks like a big blob right now. But I'll let this come out. And you see how it's kind of like stretchy and elasticy? That's a good thing. So that's the consistency we want it to be. Set this over here. Well, that was a little loud. There. All right, so now get some more flour, sprinkle over the top. We're gonna go ahead and knead this a little bit, not much at all. And when I say knead, it's basically just kind of fold, tuck, fold, tuck, fold, tuck. That's about all I'm gonna do to this, okay? And then what I'm gonna do is get my rolling pin, and we're gonna roll this out into a 1/2 inch thickness. And then we'll cut them out into little donuts and make donut holes too. Okay, so here's my rolling pin. I went ahead and put a little bit of flour on it and just kind of roll it, around, because you want to coat this so that the dough, if there's any wet, sticky part of the dough that touches it, it will stick. If you put flour, it won't. So let's go ahead and roll it out. And I'm not going to roll it too thin. Like I said, it's about a 1/2 inch thickness that we're going for, because we want some big plump donuts. Not those little skinny little donuts. We want some good sized donuts. Okay, so now using my circle cutter, this one is, I guess, about a 3-inch circle. Actually, it does say it here, 3-inch. And I'm going to use a little, looks like a 1-inch round cutter. The big one is obviously to make the entire donut, so you will cut it like this. So I'll cut a couple of these just to show you. And just kind of, spin a little bit and shake it, just to kind of separate it from the rest of the dough. And then you take your little cutter, place it in the center, press down, shake it, do a little dance if you want. Just kidding. But just kind of shake it like that to loosen that circle. Pop it out. One thing you can do too is dip it in your flour so you don't get anything that sticks. So here we go. Let's try that again. Oh, much better. All right, so we got donut holes going. Got regular donuts. You don't have to be real gentle either, you know. So that's the cool thing about it. We'll go ahead and flour that a little bit more. There you go. So there's a sample of what we're going to be doing. And I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest. Okay, so I've cut this first batch up. Don't worry, the scrap dough that we have left that you see that are not donut shaped right now, we're going to roll that up really gently and then roll it again and then cut out some more. So we'll use up all this dough and then we can make like little donut holes, additional donut holes with whatever's left. But what I wanted to make sure I showed you is this little, square piece of parchment paper that you're going to line a pan with. And like I said, it'll make it easy. You have one donut on it, you flip it in the grease, peel it off, and you're done. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and transfer these carefully to the parchment paper. And then you can kind of make it, reshape it if you accidentally stretched it out like I just did. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'll transfer these over and let these sit on the parchment paper. What'll happen is we'll go ahead and put these on the parchment paper, let them rise. They'll basically double in size over 45 minutes. It's about, well, it depends on how warm your house is. Mine is pretty cool, so it'll probably take the 45 minutes, but if your house is a little warmer, like you keep your temperature a little warmer, then you can just, check it in 30 minutes. And if they've doubled in size, they're ready to go. All right, so I got all these donuts cut and donut holes. This is one of 2 pans that I have full of donuts and donut holes. They are going to be so awesome. I can't wait to fry these. But we do have to wait, unfortunately, for 30 to 45 minutes. Like I said earlier, it depends on the temperature of that you keep it in your house. If you keep it warmer, it may only take 30 minutes. If you keep it a lot cooler like we do, it's probably about 70 degrees in here, it'll take 45 minutes. So what we're trying to get, remember, is that the donuts are going to rise and fluff up, almost double, or probably about double in size. So what we need to do next, before we put them off to the side, is we need to cover them with a light towel. And I have a couple of these. They're pretty thin. Cajun Kitchen, yes. My mother-in-law made those for me. She's so sweet. I am from Louisiana, so that's why it's the Cajun. But anyway, I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to set it off to the side for 45 minutes. All right, it's been 45 minutes, and look at these donuts, how big and fluffy they have gotten. And the donut holes, these things, look at this one. It's like double the height. It's so cool to watch. But anyway, these are going to be fried in just a minute. We're waiting on our grease to heat up. So what you want to do is either use a fryer, an electric fryer. That's what I'm going to use today. Because number one, it's easier to know the temperature. That thing, you set it on the temperature that you want, or that you know for donuts. I do 375 in the fryer. If you want to do it on the stove because you don't have a fryer, you can use like a Magnolite or some kind of Dutch oven that has a heavy bottom, because you do not want to fry food, deep fry food in a non-stick pot or something that has a thin bottom. It doesn't heat the oil evenly or correctly. So, but today we're going to use the fryer, and here is my fryer. We're just waiting on it to get to the temperature, and we'll get started. And also, while we're waiting on the oil to heat up, if you use a pot on the stove, make sure you use at least like 2 inches deep of oil, and have a thermometer to check the temperature to make sure you have it at the right temperature. I do donuts on 375, so I think if you get a thermometer and you check it, like one that's, food safe and safe for, using in that high heat and an oil, so you can always make sure that you have the right temperature. Alrighty. Okay, I am so excited. My oil is all heated up. It's at 375. All right, so here's what I'm talking about with this parchment paper on the donut. So you got the one square, the single donut on it, and then what you do is you just gently lay it in there, take the paper off, throw it away, move on to the next one, the next donut, and gently lay it in there. Sometimes the donuts stick to the parchment paper, and I don't know why. Because it's parchment paper, it shouldn't. Anywho, I'm going to put a couple more in there. Look at how these fluffed up. I mean, isn't that crazy? All right. Let's let these fry for about 20 to 30 seconds on one side, and then about 20 to 30 seconds on the other side until they're golden brown. All right, let's go ahead and turn it over and see what they look like. Yeah, see, they're getting that nice brown, that golden brown. It's not too brown, it's not too light. This is what you're looking for in a good color in a donut. And I only put 3 in here because, first of all, you don't want to put too many things in your frying pan or frying pot because it'll adjust the temperature real quick, right? It'll cool it off. And also, look at these things. They're huge, so there's no room. I was only able to put 3. So let's get these things browning. Can't wait for you guys to try these. And then we'll make a really good glaze after these are done. And while they're cooling off a little bit, we'll make a good glaze and we'll spoon it over. So can't wait. Okay, I think these have reached their perfecto golden color that we're looking for, if that's the right word to use. But perfecto, but golden, this is what you're looking for. So you definitely want to make sure you strain that grease. And like I said, you have your parchment paper lined pan with a cooling rack on it. Just set them on there and just keep frying them up till they're all done. All right, we got all of our donuts fried and golden brown and on the cooling racks. The grease is dripping off. So now we're going to make our glaze that we're going to cover our, donuts with. So what we're going to start with is a saucepan with 1 cup of water. We're going to add a half a teaspoon of lemon juice and 1 tablespoon of vanilla. You can use pure vanilla, you can use vanilla extract, it doesn't matter, but vanilla is the key to this recipe because that's what we're calling them, vanilla homemade donuts. So then what we're going to do is take a whisk and whisk the vanilla and lemon juice into the milk. Oh, by the way, the heat on the fire is medium, and you see how it's kind of steaming up and it's kind of not boiling, but it's already almost to a boil. That's what you want. And then what we're going to do is take 2 cups of confectioner's sugar, powdered sugar, and I spoon it in. That way we don't make a big mess. But you put that into the milk, vanilla and lemon mixture, and then we'll whisk it together until it's all combined. And once we have that all combined, our glaze will be ready. All right, so we got that. Let's take our whisk. And what we're trying to do is make sure we dissolve that sugar into the milk. The lemon adds a little something. I can't describe it, but it's so good with that vanilla. So what we'll do is we'll actually let this kind of simmer. We'll lower the fire to like a simmer because we don't want to like really cook it. We're just trying to make sure it's all dissolved and all mixed in really well. And kind of thicken a little bit so that when we spoon it onto the donuts, it'll be so yummy. All right, we are hitting the finish line right now. I'm so excited. So right now we've got all of our donuts fried. They're all this golden, pretty brown. And we've got our glaze made. You see how thick and nice that looks? So what we can do, there's 2 ways to do this. One, the quick way, or we could do it another way. The quick way would be to take this spoon. I just use a solid spoon. And here's the glaze. In my saucepan, it's still kind of warm, which is good because we want it to be able to spread on the donuts. So what I do typically is I take a spoonful and I just kind of go over the donuts like this. Just kind of coat the donuts, okay? That way it kind of goes down the sides and it gets it all nice and coated. Or you can do it this way. You can take a donut. Let's take this one. It looks pretty good. So I'll hold it like this, and then I'll take the spoon out of the way and I'll just kind of dip half of it and then just set it back down. So you can see both ways work, but this one will waste a little bit more. This one won't, but you have to be careful because this glaze is hot and it will burn you. So you have to be careful. I'm going to go ahead and finish glazing these, and then we will Have some. It'll be so yummy. Okay, you guys have just witnessed the making of the homemade vanilla donuts. They're glazed. I only glazed the one half, but you can glaze both sides. It's up to you. You'd have to flip them over after they kind of set a little bit. And what I mean by set is the glaze will actually kind of do a little crisp. You know, like the donuts you get at the store, or the Krispy Kreme or Shipley's or whatever you've got near you. Let's break one open and see what it looks like on the inside. Let's check it out. Oh, nice and golden brown, cooked in the middle, fluffy deliciousness. You will be glad you made these at home. What do you think?
It is good.
It is good?
The inside's a little fluffy. I like it.
Do you like the store-bought better or the homemade better?
Homemade.
Yeah, because why? What's the most important ingredient in there?
Love.
Love, that's right. All right, see you guys in the next video.